1. NWA Talking Territory Season 2, Episode 2. We started last week with an unhappy Pastor CeeLo. I'm hoping this week's guest will be a bit happier for us anyway. But before we introduce our great guest this evening, obviously this is NWA, which can only mean one thing. My NWA ride or die from Scotland Fee. Has it been 2 hours since we spoke all things power?
Not quite. It's been a trip to the supermarket and back for me, so we're all good.
Trip to the supermarket. Well, today we are joined by someone from Exodus Pro Wrestling. He's had some interesting trainers over his time that we want to hear about, and also has a move, one of his signature moves is very synonymous in wrestling. So I want to discuss that with him as well. But we are going to be strictly business with Brandon Barretta. How are you?
Yes, sir. You're doing great. Doing great.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us, Brandon. Look, we've just started Hard Times over here in the UK. We know it was filmed months and months ago.
Yeah.
So we don't want to talk about that too much. But being a part of Exodus Pro and kind of, we've now seen that hit on the NWA streaming. It's done that on a few shows. How, so in 2025 now, what is it like working or being a part of Exodus Pro where you can see that there's this big opportunity, this big shiny other three letters NWA that potentially we know you've been on there, but is that a door that is kind of like a half open for you that you want to kick down and get into?
That was the sole intention of getting myself into NWA was going through Exodus. You know, I actually just our last show, May 23rd, whenever I challenged Dante Casanova for the Midwest heavyweight title. Um, that was right at pretty much a year mark that I've been kind of around Exodus. Um, as strictly business Brandon Barretta. And the story to that is another thing, but that door is definitely like if you want to get to the NWA, like Exodus is the top territory. Like we have the most amount of people who came through Exodus out of any territory that is now signed to the NWA as a current roster member. Like we're the only territory with over, I think we're at like 9 now that have came through Exodus that are now signed NWA talent. So
That's
absolutely.
impressive.
That is.
That's very impressive.
That is impressive. But is it exciting though? And obviously NWA bringing the territories back. I mean, it was something that was synonymous, a bit fee when we don't want to show our age, but when me and you were growing up, the territories were kind of dying off because WWE were, kind of say buying the competition, but we know what we're talking about there. But in terms of that, is it exciting that, NWA kind of has the opportunity to branch into different states and everything in America and set up these territories so it gives people like yourself and other up and coming wrestlers a real opportunity and they get sometimes give you that taste of what it's like on that main roster.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, so we do have uh NWA World League Wrestling, which is a territory there.
Mhm.
Which I don't know if you know anything about World League,
Yeah.
but that is Harley Race's promotion.
Yes.
That is his baby. That is the house that Harley Race built. And I actually, since I started wrestling, I wanted to wrestle at WLW, and that didn't happen until just this year. And at the time, I was, living in St. Louis, and I showed up to a NWA WLW show, announced as strictly business Brandon Barretta, um, but representing NWA Exodus Pro, which was quite the conundrum for St. Louis fans because they're like, well, what we know who Brandon is. Like he wrestles 30, 40 minutes from here. Um, but I was there as a representative of NWA Exodus Pro. So it was a very unique and exciting opportunity to do that.
Definitely. So Fee, go ahead.
Oh, obviously you talking about your St. Louis boy. St. Louis is quite synonymous with NWA at the moment,
Yeah.
particularly with the whole wrestling at the Chase thing. Is that something that you're hoping potentially as a venue that they'll return to, that you'll get the opportunity to wrestle there? That must be
Absolutely.
up there as one of your kind of venues that you want to tick off a bucket list, I'm presuming.
I've actually been able to check the Coruscant Ballroom off my bucket list.
Wow. Okay, that's
With
cool.
yeah, with it wasn't through the NWA, but I attended. I believe it was 73 was the first time they ran the chase.
Mhm.
Within recent years, and it was whenever Trevor Murdoch won the heavyweight title. I was at that show, and I know Trevor fairly well now, but at the time didn't know him from Adam, other than watching him whenever I was growing up. But I watched him win the title there, and I right then and there was like, I've got two goals. I want to wrestle for the NWA and be a signed wrestler to that promotion, and I want to wrestle on the Coruscant Ballroom. I've been able to do one of those things. So uh, the Coruscant Ballroom was fantastic to be able to wrestle, under those lights that many, many legends have been under in previous years. And it is definitely a venue that I really hope the NWA returns to, because having that opportunity to potentially wrestle there again, but then under the three letters of the NWA would just mean even more, um, you know, to do it twice. So
That would
It's a
be.
beautiful venue. I haven't had the pleasure, but I watched the shows and thought, yeah, it's a classic. And I've
it
seen
is.
loads of old footage and old photos and everything. So yeah, I can imagine that was probably a pretty special time for you.
It was fantastic.
I was just looking at the NWA 73 card as Brandon was talking, and some of the names on this show. I mean, actually, Tim Storm actually defeated Tom Latimer in Crimson on
Yep.
that. Mickey James wrestled on that show. Chelsea Green, James Storm, obviously Camille was there, and you're right. Trevor Murdoch put his career on the line against the then champion, now SmackDown General Manager Nick
Nick
Aldis.
Aldis. Yes.
Yeah, Britain's own as well in that one. I want to touch on St. Louis again in a minute. I want to come back to that, but you did mention, that was an arena that you checked off your bucket list, and one
Yes.
wonders what other arenas are on Z bucket list that you'd like to cross off.
Mm. So obviously we just had Crockett Cup, which
Yep,
was in Philadelphia.
yep.
Um, I was not able to wrestle in the 2300 arena, but the 2300 arena is obviously on that bucket list. Um, and then the era that I grew up in, like we even had in St. Louis, we had the Keel Auditorium, which was like WWF used to run there. Uh, but that unfortunately has been, torn down, and is no longer used. One of those two. It's either torn down or it's just completely abandoned and not even uh really in the shape to be brought back. But um it's really just buildings like that Hammerstein. I mean, of course, like the those early kind of Ring of Honor, esque buildings, those ballroom style buildings that just, I don't have a necessarily a specific list.
Mm.
Because I say this a lot to people whenever I show up to a venue or I get booked by a promotion. The first thing I do is I look up the address and I look at what kind of venue we're going, because I'm really big on the aesthetics of a promotion. Like what type of setup they have, what's the venue, because so many places just run the local, KC Hall, or they run the local hall in the town, and it's like, what can you do to be unique as a promotion, and what kind of unique buildings can you run in your area? And one that, I mean, I've done it three times. I've worked inside this building three times, so I would love to do it again. So it's still on my bucket list alongside Coruscant Ballroom, but is another St. Louis building is the Missouri Athletic Club. Um, it was never known for having wrestling ran in that building, because the room that is ran currently is on the third floor of this building, and the Missouri Athletic Club, that's just St. Louis Cardinals players, Blues players, high level officials of St. Louis, lawyers, all these people, different, makes, go to this they pay a monthly fee to this club, so it's very exclusive.
Okay.
And I've got to work that venue 3 times now, and it was as close to wrestling at the Chase that I could get before being able to do the Courtside Ballroom. um, because it's got the low hanging chandeliers, and everyone shows up dressed in, I mean, to the nines. The crowd, they're dressed in their suits and their gowns, these elaborate outfits, and they're at circle tables eating dinner and getting boozed up, before they're gonna smoke cigars and fill the room with smoke and have this dim lighting, old school wrestling like vibe. Um, I'll have to share a photo. I'll send a photo of that room
Please.
to you on Twitter. That way you can see what I'm talking about, because describing it is just like, that's one of my favorite ones, like, to run. And I would do it a million times over, because that crowd is just, they're just hot for wrestling. They're boozed up, smoking cigars, full stomach, ready to see some old school wrestling.
That
That
sounds.
sounds like my kind of
Yeah, I
venue,
was
to be
gonna
honest.
Oh
say.
yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
I
Just
love to get dressed. I love to get dressed up for a show if I'm going. I'm not a jeans and t-shirt for wrestling. I usually, if I'm not working a show, I generally tend to make an effort.
Yeah.
yeah,
It brings a different vibe to it, like,
Completely.
I
it's
have to.
it's completely different.
I have to say, I don't make an effort in terms of that, but normally I'm doing something, whether it's an in-ring announcement or something when I get involved. Although Fee, being an announcer, that's one of your, dress up is one of your things. That's
Yeah.
as an announcer. But just one quick one on the arena before Fee, I'll pass over to you. I still love to this day Samhain 1. Do you remember
Oh,
the Cleveland Masonic Temple?
yes.
What
Yes.
a venue that was uh,
Yes.
for a show. But go ahead, Fee. I just had to remember it when we was talking about.
That's quite all right. So if I can take you back to your training, obviously, we know that you've been trained by Cowboy Bob Orton
Yes.
and also EC3. But we've just noticed, obviously, you have a match coming up very, very soon with EC3 next month for Pro Wrestling Epic. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
How do you feel going up against the guy who trained you? Have you got any sort of special, obviously you don't want to give too much away in case he sees this, but have you taken your training up a notch? Have you had to do something different? Because obviously you know what he's capable of because he's put you through your paces.
Yes. He EC3 is, besides the boots on the ground work I've done, he is solely responsible for who I am as a professional wrestler today. Um, so this is a very large challenge. It's also in my hometown, so
No pressure.
it right. It is a match that I never thought I would have had in my career. You know, my original trainer, Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., I had the privilege of tagging with him, or very early on in my career, but I never had the opportunity to face him. So now to face the guy who has completely molded me into what I am now, is nerve-wracking, but in the mindset of strictly business, my plans are the same. Like, EC3 is a very talented world traveled wrestler, but I'm also younger than him. I'm faster than him. Dare to say stronger than him in some, you know, situations. But he's also got the experience card. So then it's, how does he know the counters to certain moves that I do that maybe many people don't do as much, which I think is the thing that will factor into the match. So for me, it's more of a test to myself really than like, okay, I got a plan to beat him. It's more of, I'm going to give him everything I got. And if I win, I win. If I lose, then it's okay. I'm not as good as I thought I was. So it's really that kind of teacher versus student
Yeah.
vibe that I have going into it, and that mindset I have going into it. Do I think EC3 has wrestled competitors like me before? absolutely, because I get a lot of comparisons to people who he has worked
Mm.
in the past. Um, but I'm not them. I think differently. So there's things to it that I'm excited for that I won't reveal in the sense
I
of,
understand.
you know, uh, but it seems like every time I wrestle a match, whether it's on Exodus or any other promotions that I'm currently working with, every match I'm doing something different, but in the mindset of strictly business. And I've had multiple moves that um, I've kind of made synonymous to me currently that people don't really see often. So him not encountering those moves before, I think that leans more in my favor.
I
Interesting.
look forward to hearing all about that. That's what, July the 11th, is that right?
Yes, yes, July the 11th, and that match will be uh, able to be streamed on IWTV, which is independent wrestling TV. They got the app and all that stuff, so um, that is something that if you feel like tuning in, it will be broadcasted on there as well. So should be an exciting one.
One
Good
for the
stuff.
calendar fee, that one.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll just say I will clip the bit where you said that you're faster and stronger than EC3 and send it to
I'll text it to him.
yeah, I'm sure that you will. I was going to talk about moves in a minute, and I will do because just wanted to quickly. Fee mentioned Cowboy Bob Orton, you mentioned Cowboy Bob Orton as well. But the question is, have you had any interactions with the son of Cowboy Bob Orton, that being the Viper Randy Orton, during the times of training?
So unfortunately, not during the times of training, but I have been able to meet Randy a handful of times. Um, of course, growing up, like it was, I mean, Randy Orton was my favorite. So, being from St. Louis, like it's just automatic. Like that's who your go-to is. But the last time I really got to have a like kind of a conversation with him, he actually inducted Bob into the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame um, at the promotion that I started at. And it was kind of one of those things that was hush hush because it was like, okay, he's a contracted WWE wrestler. And at the time, WWE wasn't letting their guys go out and do all these things, like they are now. So it was kind of more of just a, hey, to the fans, the entire Orton family will be there. And that's how we were able to promote it.
Okay.
That's all. That's all we could say. So fans show up and they're anticipating, they're like, they said entire Orton family. That means Nathan, Randy, their sister, like everybody is going to be there. And yeah, he was there. He inducted Bob. He stayed for the show that we had afterwards. And, you know, Bob is one of those guys that, he's in his mid 70s now. And you can only imagine after being hit in the head and, all this stuff, memory tends to fade sometimes. But regardless of how long I go without seeing Bob, like it's always great that when I do see him, he's remembers my name and everything like right away. Like because I was the second graduate from his school, and there's been a few after me. Um, but I really hold myself to a standard of like I'm the one that is going out and like when people are like, what kind of students does Bob Orton have? Like I want them to know, Brandon Barretta. Um, and that's nothing, saying that the other graduates can't do it, but I'm like, I'm gonna do it, whether you do it or not. So, um, Randy is one of those guys that I would love even later in my career, if I'm 5, 6, 7 years in and he does something with Bob's school or maybe he has his own school, whatever, like I would I would still attend, like regardless of tenure in the business, because Randy is one of those guys that um he's got everything from top to bottom, when it comes to being what a professional wrestler's supposed to be. So few interactions with him, but would love more, even from the coaching standpoint. whenever that may be a thing.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the way NWA and WWE go, and he could rock up in the power station
You never know.
at some
You never
point.
know.
Before we move on, Phil, I'll let you ask the next question in a second. I just want to finish off with this one. I mentioned one of your moves that you do is the spine buster, and it's one of the
Mhm.
moves that you have done. And the spine buster is synonymous with some of the great names in wrestling, Ultra Double A being the most obvious one. When you're looking at move sets, and obviously, the spine buster is something synonymous. I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. Do you try to sort of make it your own, maybe do something slightly different? So people will always say Brandon Barretta's one because he does this. Is that something that you look at doing, or do you just sort of look at, say, double A's and go, I want that, but a bit more powerful, or something along those lines?
So I started doing the spine buster. This was, I mean, yeah, a little over 3 years ago. And I knew from day one, I was like, that's gonna be my my finisher. That is my all right, this match is over. We're done. Like I'm hitting the spine buster. And I was a huge Arn Anderson fan. Really when I got into wrestling, like when I say got into wrestling, when I started training for wrestling, I was at a very old school promotion in Southern Illinois called Southern Illinois Championship Wrestling, and I mean when I say old school, like I mean you may see a match finish off of a body slam, like it's not nothing crazy going on. No, there's not a whole lot of flips and high spots and run spots. It's all like old school Memphis style, like wrestling at the chase style professional wrestling. And I was like the spine buster nowadays gets used so much, kind of like the DDT or the super kick, like, but I was like, I can make it a finishing move again. And you may see a spine buster 3 or 4 times on a wrestling card, but when Brandon Barretta hits it, it's over. And I knew right away I'm doing the double A spine buster. Now at the time, uh, I was not strictly business Brandon Barretta. I was Top Gun Brandon Barretta. And so the spine buster I did was the full clip spine buster. And now when I do it, it's simply called a spine buster. Just like my fisherman suplex is simply called a fisherman suplex because it doesn't need a flashy name to be effective. So to make it my own, I just hit it effectively and pin someone. Um, but there's really nothing to it other than I'm gonna hit it when I want to. Like, and there's nothing they can do about it. Tuck your chin. Like that's it.
That is it. And what I like about that, and just feed before I move on to you quickly, what I like about it is a bit like the NWA when Carnage hits a drop kick, BFT win the match, right? It's old
Yeah.
school finishes. The elbow drops win it in that sense. But Fee, sorry, I was taking your thunder.
No, it's okay. We spoke about that a lot.
Mm.
Coming back to NWA, we've seen you fairly recently in the last couple of weeks on TV, on Power, mysteriously with Baron von Storm. And you did help him release his claw with his little globe. And now that we know that you are tagging with him against Temple of Doom in one of the upcoming episodes of Hard Times, how did that come about?
It was one of those things that, again, from where I'm at currently as a professional wrestler, I have a business mindset. Like that is my focus on everything is I need to do whatever is best for my business. Um, I in Dallas when we did Shockwave, I was one of the Exodus goons or whatever, they're calling us. Um, and I was on the unfortunate side of the claw, but I've met Tim, multiple times, and there was just there was an opportunity that I saw that made sense for business. Uh, there was the best way I can put it is that it was a business opportunity that I saw externally and was
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna insert myself here. Obviously from the perspective of NWA office, like it was their like that's their thing. Hey, we're going to use you here. But from a strictly business mindset, I'm like absolutely inserting myself. Like this is an opportunity to be on NWA product whenever whenever Tim Storm's there, I will be there. Um, and Tim Storm is a very well respected professional wrestler. I mean, there are people that when they found that I was tagging with Tim, they were like, "Oh my gosh, I've known Tim for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Like, this is amazing. Like, that's such a great spot, for you to be in." And if you look at it from the things of, well, how do you go from Exodus, getting the mask pulled off you and basically having your power debut as one of the Exodus, members to then being a part, putting myself with Tim Storm, it's exactly that. What's best for business? EC3 and PB Smooth, were a part of the Crockett Cup. So I had to find my place. Where do I get Brandon Barretta strictly business in on NWA Power as much as I can? And that's where that came about.
Wow.
And you're talking obviously Tim, Baron, whatever we want to call him, has been around for a long time. There's quite a lot of vets in the locker room at NWA. Have you learned a lot from the likes of him and Trevor
Oh yeah.
and all the people that have been around there for a long time? We always hear when we talk to the younger territory wrestlers about how incredible the locker room is, how knowledgeable they are, and how they love just going in and soaking everything up.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, like I said, from whenever I saw Trevor Murdoch win the NWA, World's Heavyweight title, it was I knew from day one, right then and there, that I was like, I want to be a part of the NWA because the history that it has, but then also the talent in that locker room, like you said, the vets of the business that we have, like that was before I even, started training with EC3. So like at the time I was still training under Bob and learning from him, I was like, I need to learn more of this. I want to learn from guys who were trained by Harley Race, which is, Trevor Murdoch. I want to learn from guys that were trained by all these legends that then I can learn how to work that style and incorporate that into my move set and who I am as a professional wrestler, which is one thing I take pride in because even now, like, watch it. If you watch the Exodus product, you know, my thing is the waist lock, and that was the thing. Like, no one realizes how versatile a waist lock or a waist lock takeover can be. And that's why I picked it. I was like, it's one of those things that if I get my hands around your waist and I get an S grip or a gable grip, whatever, like, there's nothing you can do about it. And that's something I learned from Bob is like if you learn the basics and you learn them well, you can work anywhere with anyone.
Yeah.
And the waist lock's such a basic move that I can do on anybody. And the NWA locker room is just one of those locker rooms that has a wealth of knowledge that even though I feel like I'm the best version of myself in this business. There's still so much to learn, from these guys. And I've learned a ton, from guys like Trevor Murdoch, uh, Aaron Stevens, obviously EC3, Baron Von Storm. I mean, there's a plethora of guys that, and even the people that are not currently on the product that are just backstage
Yeah.
is insane.
Yeah, it is. It is very. We always hear it, and Miss Jazz, of course, with
Oh
the
yeah.
ladies and there as well. But now I'm gonna move. Just gonna as we get to this part of the show is when I just drift off into some random some wrestling questions, and some maybe a part of wrestling questions. But first things first, and I think I meant touched on this one before, Brandon, before we went on air. So, your top three favorite wrestling themes, what
Mm.
would they be?
Uh, Shoot. So I have, I'll just three right off the top of my head. Um, Cult of Personality with CM
Yeah.
Punk, like because I mean that's on my workout playlist, that's on my regular playlist.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I mean, Chris Benoit's theme song
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
it's right up there, with some of the best, theme songs you could have. And then it's a toss up between Burning My Light, which was
Ooh, Randy's
Randy's,
old one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Randy's old one. But I'm also a huge, huge fan of like that heavier metal.
Hmm.
Uh, so Code Orange, they did Aleister Black's
Yeah.
theme song, which I'm a very, very big fan of that song as well. So I would probably say we'll go with those three. We'll go with Cult of Personality, Benoit's,
Yeah.
and then we'll go with Aleister Black's.
Do you know, I was listening before we come on this evening, and a song that I hadn't heard in ages that I forgot. And it's one of those ones where you just like, you don't hear it for a while, and you're like, yeah, that's such a good one. Do you remember, maybe a bit before your time, Brandon, or when you were growing up, but Fee, do you remember Hollywood Hogan's Voodoo Child, Jimi Hendrix?
Yes. Yeah.
That come on,
Oh
I
yeah.
just I had this like a thing on a TikTok, and it's like classic wrestling songs, and that one and one that played that I hadn't heard for and again for years was Kidman's when he was on SmackDown.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, do you remember? I think you
That
can run if you want to, right? I think that's what
Yeah,
it's called. Yeah.
that song was like I was just watching a video and someone was talking about like how Kidman had a theme song that was way too heavy for him. Like, he just had this like, you know, you would think that he was just some like he's gonna come out and just walk you corner to corner,
Yeah.
like just it was yeah, that's a really good. There's an old SmackDown theme song that was really good too. I believe it's called "I Want It All."
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another one of those songs that's on my playlist that I'm like, dude, like, can we do this again? Like, can we like what are we doing with the current music? Like we need to
Yeah.
go back to what was his name? Jim Johnson. Like
Jim
get him
Johnson.
back in the
Yeah.
yeah, give
Yeah.
him the friggin' reins. Let him do it again.
Don't Def Rebel
Like
him. Jeez. Don't Def Rebel him, that's for sure.
yeah.
To touch on that, I've asked you what your three favorite wrestling themes are,
Mhm.
but if you're in the ring, what would be the theme song that you would want to, in terms of like the presentation, who would you want to be in that ring and have somebody come out? Who would that be?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's the first time I've asked that
Overall,
question, by the way.
oh my gosh. There's so many.
Yeah, there is.
There are so many. I mean, if I was to have to pick one, like I'm gonna just go with Randy.
Mhm.
Like,
The Viper
it would
one, though.
just yeah, if just him in general, like
Yeah.
or are you saying like if I wanted to like if I'm in the ring and I just need to hear a specific song or who my opponent actually
Who your
is?
opponent actually is. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah, then I would say Randy.
yeah. Love
So,
that. I just want to be in there because I was talking to Matt Cardona a couple of years ago, and I said to him, like, when you're in that ring, like, and for example, he's been in there a few times when he's heard the gong of the
oh
Undertaker.
my gosh, that would send
Yeah,
chills down you. Like,
exactly
That
that.
or the breaking glass, Austin's breaking
Oh,
glass or
oh,
something like that.
yeah, but you'd be really worried though, wouldn't you?
You
'Cause,
would.
yeah, you know what that happens when the glass hits you. You're getting
yeah,
whooped.
you're done. You're
Yeah,
done. You're
yeah, there is
cooked.
that. Yeah, yeah, cooked is the one. And
Oh
the
no,
last one. Oh, go on.
oh no, sorry, no, on you go. Go first and then I'll
Yeah, yeah. I was going to ask one which is a bit different, which is obviously you guys train and you eat well, but when you have a cheat day, what is like your go-to cheat?
Oh, are we talking dessert or are we just talking
I'm a
overall?
dessert fan, so go right
the
ahead.
full three courses. Go for it.
If I'm having a cheat day, like and well, I'll say this. I don't really have cheat days, but I'll have just cheat meals.
Mhm.
Um, and most of the time it's a dessert where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go eat this. Like this is what I need right now. Um, I just love like it's some people still label it as ice cream, but like frozen custard. Like if you find a frozen custard spot, like there's one back by my hometown. It's in Edwardsville, Illinois, and it's called Auntie's. And like so St. Louis is synonymous for like gooey butter cake, but they do a gooey butter cake frozen custard, and then they also do like carrot cake frozen custard, a banana cream pie frozen custard. So like it's dessert flavored frozen custard, but they do the mix-ins, so like you'll have the gooey butter cake chunks in it, or you'll have the carrot cake chunks with the, filling on the top. And that would be that would be my go-to. That is my go-to, is like just a nice frozen custard that is of some dessert that I enjoy.
Yeah, you have cheat meals. I have cheat hours. Go on,
my,
Finn.
my, my cheats tend to be like full cheat weeks.
Yeah.
Cheat weeks. Yeah.
Over to you.
No, I was just going to ask, that poster behind you is intriguing me.
Mhm.
Talk to me about that. Where's that from and what?
So
I
this
noticed
is
it when you came on. So
yeah, this is a poster that was in this house. The house I'm in right now is we call it Wrestle House. We have I would grab the sign for you, but this is the Exodus Wrestle House basically. So there's a few of us that live here full time. Last year I was here part time.
okay.
When I was training at the school with EC3, but this poster was here whenever I moved in, and I thought that it would fit the background. But it's basically, it's a old poster for the wrestler, which was Vern Gagne and Billy Robinson, and it's just a old style movie poster. So
It's really cool.
it is a very unique piece that we have in the house, that I really want to put in a frame, just because I think it would make it look even more like, official. But this has been here since the house, started up, which was about 2 years ago. So yeah, it's a
So,
nice little piece though.
so I'm intrigued now, the Wrestler House. How many of you are there at the moment then? How many of
Oh
you
my
reside
gosh.
in Wrestler House? Or is it
Right
almost
now,
like a revolving door of people coming in and out? Or
so right now, currently, I'm physically the only person here, but we do have Noah who also lives here, and then in September, we'll have another Exodus roster member moving in, which is Connor Knox. He's kind of like making his way into Exodus and
Mhm.
stuff. But last year when we had the school, I I mean, it was there was people staying here kind of like a revolving door, because like I would come up from St. Louis Monday morning, and I
Mhm.
would go straight to training Monday night, like because it's 8 hours, one way. So I'd drive up 8 hours, get to training at 5 p.m., train from 5 to 9, come here, sleep, and then I picked up a job while I was up here. Would work 7 to 3 on Tuesday, go to training Tuesday night, stay here Tuesday night. Wednesday work 7 to 3, come here, stay Wednesday night, and then Thursday I would drive to Louisville for OVW, which was
Mhm.
about 5 hours, and then I would drive back to St. Louis after OVW. Then I would wrestle, Saturday night, Sunday night in St. Louis, and then come back here on Monday. And we had guys from Leo Fox to Sebastian, Man Bun Jesus. I mean, when everyone comes into town for shows, this is where they stay. So, like on show days, I mean, we have the slime balls in here, Carson Drake, Lord Crew, uh, Dante Casanova, uh, Cowpoke Paul, Man Bun. I mean, it's the house is jam packed
I can
with.
imagine that could be entertaining on occasions.
Does
Oh yeah,
have you all started doing the Carson Shuffle yet?
the Carson shot. I've had to share a hotel room with Carson. And yeah, that
Yeah.
was a experience.
Experience, yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine we had him on, and I think all we done through the show was laugh.
Yeah, pretty
Fair
much.
enough.
Oh
So
my gosh.
that's all we
He,
had from
yeah,
Carson.
he's a character.
He certainly is, and he's a champion at the moment. Anyway, obviously with some stuff coming up, we'll have to see what he does. Brandon, we're gonna start to begin to wrap up. I was
Yeah.
there was one other question that I had, And now it's this left my head because of the thought of you doing the Carson Shuffle was so now I am stumped for what I was going to ask. What I was going to ask you, which is a bit of a shame. Fee, do you have another question before your last one? And I can try and think of mine as
Before
well.
my last one. Okay, so let me think as well. Now you put me on the spot because I thought you
Sorry.
were going to go now. You've just
No,
thrown everything up in the
yeah,
air.
yeah, yeah. That's blame
So
Carson.
you obviously Exodus Pro, NWA. Have you been to any of the other territories yet to
Yeah.
smack anyone around? Where's been your favorite so far?
So Exodus is always going to be my favorite as far as territories. Uh, Obviously, World League
Yeah.
was a huge one. Um, I would like to get to JCP, and then also I know we have the two territories in Texas, Dog Pound and then TSW. Um, because when we actually did Shockwave in Dallas, we ran that same building that TSW runs.
Yeah,
It's a
Forney.
it's
It's
a
an incredible building.
it is great. And that territory TSW runs there every show.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very nice setup. And you know, I actually the match that I worked was with one of their like main guys, Bam Bam Malone.
I know Bam
Um,
Bam. He's
yeah,
super
so
talented,
it
super
was
talented.
seeing the level of talent they have, I'm like, I need to get down there.
Yeah.
The Izzy James is down there in Texas. He just won the NWA Texas, title, which is, a big thing because he called out Exodus Pro, and it's like, brother, I'll just come to Texas. I'll bring Exodus Pro to you, you know.
Well, just talking
So
of Izzy, if you've got any words, we're interviewing Izzy next week.
We are.
So if there's any message you'd like us to pass on to him, feel free, and we can pass that right on.
I, yeah, if he wants the business, I'll come to Texas and give him the business. So if he wants to call out Exodus Pro, I mean, there's many guys on the roster that we could send down, but I'll be the first to step up, to say like, all right, man, you want to call out the top territory, then we'll send you top talent. So, I'll wrestle him. I'll give him waist lock after waist lock after waist lock, and we'll see if that Texas championship stays around his waist, or I'll just bring it back to Cleveland.
Ooh,
So
fighting talk.
There we
Love
go.
it.
We'll have to remind him of that. But I've remembered now the question I was going to ask. That this is the second to last question of the show. Brandon, look, you mentioned before all of the great guys that are backstage, all the experienced guys that are backstage at NWA. But wrestling, and you mentioned OVW, and there's in the past there's been OVW, there's been FCW, Jim Cornette and people like that have been around the business, Vince Russo, Eric Bischoff, and so on and so forth. Is there a few people that you would love to just sit down? Who would be like your top three sort of legends or writers or producers that or wrestling personalities that you would love to sit down and just pick their brains for a day or so?
so I had the privilege of doing a seminar with Tom Pritchard,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yep.
which was in Memphis, Tennessee. But I would like to have like 2 or 3 days, which even still wouldn't be enough time to really sit under Tom's, tutelage and just kind of learn from him and try to soak up as much knowledge. He would be one. Uh, I've met Dean Malenko a couple of times doing some extra work for AEW, but same deal there. Like there's so much that I currently try to implement in my style from Dean Malenko. That to be able to sit there and like pick his brain and it not just be kind of like an in passing or like, hey, how you doing? Like would be huge. And then I'll give one more. Um, I would. I mean, I see him pretty much weekly, but Al Snow is one of those guys that uh, I think can be underappreciated sometimes because he does have a really good mind for the business. And, he is one of the, owners at OVW currently. But when you're at OVW doing tapings, he's in production. So you don't get the sit down and pick Al Snow's brain too often unless you get a lot of feedback after your match where he's like, yeah, you need to change this, this, and this. But to be able to sit down with those three guys would be, I feel, super beneficial for any wrestler, because they've been there, they've done it, and they've done what works. So
Definitely, definitely. So I mean, Fee, Fee, you've had the luxury of, on the inside the ropes, you've been very fortunate to be in the people like an Eric Bischoff, like a
Yeah.
Jim Cornette, like a Jim Ross. Even the person that I would love to pick a brain for, and is I've got a tattoo, you probably can't see it. That's the Brood tattoo, but I was not Gangrel as the person.
oh
It'd be Adam Copeland who
yeah.
Cope or Edge. And I know I was gutted that I couldn't make
You missed that tour, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, thanks for
That
the
was so much
reminder.
fun.
And you've also been around you've had some brief bits with the Undertaker as well, with Inside the Ropes and Mick Foley. But Fee, look, I digress on that. That's a chat for another day. But of course, NWA is your baby.
Yes.
This stuff wouldn't happen, Fee. The NWA stuff wouldn't happen if on this channel, certainly, if you wasn't around. And I always give you the benefit, or not benefit, but the luxury of the last question to ask our guests. So the pressure is on now than it more than it
No,
was.
I've got a good one today.
You've got a good one, so let Brandon have it then.
So this kind of tends to go one of two ways. It tends to go very wrestling or very
Okay.
not wrestling. But we're going wrestling tonight, and this is probably one of the most ridiculous questions you may have been asked, but I want to know the answer to it. If you could be any object involved with wrestling, but not a wrestler, so you could be looking at the steel steps, the canvas, the ropes, a steel cage, a ring bell. What would you be and why?
Oh,
Probably the last time we're going to have this show after.
let's see. If I could be any object. Well, right now, obviously, my current goal is to be on as many TV screens as possible.
Mhm.
So I'll change it slightly. And I would say, because of the love I have for professional wrestling, and I want it to get out there as much as possible, I'm gonna say I don't know how many times you've asked this question,
I've
Once.
not. It's the first time, so
first time. Okay, so this might set the tone for other people's answers. Uh, I'm gonna have to go with just the ring itself.
Oh,
Like that is the centerpiece of professional wrestling.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and that's in my mind. Like, what do I want to be known for as a wrestler is what I do in between those ropes. So it's, I think if I had to be an object, that would be the ring itself.
wow.
I like that. Just so that you know, earlier on I asked Adam the same question. He toyed between being a steel cage
Okay.
and being the pyro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I
it's still-
kind of thought about potentially being the steel steps because obviously people use you to get in and out the ring, but you're also quite a hefty good weapon as well. So
Yeah.
See,
See,
I said,
in my head, I had the idea of being the camera, like hard cam.
yeah.
or I did also think about being the 10 pounds of gold itself.
Yeah.
I'll focus on you as well. So stupid question, I know, but I wanted to ask it.
I think that's
Thank you
great.
for
That's
answering.
greay.
The only reason I said steel cages, I only get brought out on special occasions. That's me. But Brandon, as we wrap up now, look, what have you got coming up that you can announce? As I said before, I appreciate there may be some stuff that you can't quite announce at the minute. But what have you got coming up in terms of event wise, and how can people book you for shows and get hold of you
Yeah.
on social media?
Yeah, obviously, tune into Power every week. I do have a match coming up on there from Hard Times. Always watch NWA Exodus Pro when we're streaming on the NWA YouTube because we're the top territory and we're the only territory that gets to do it. So make sure you tune in for that. If you click on the channel or get on YouTube and you tune on to OVW, like I'm there weekly as well. But for the most part, upcoming events, I do have this week. I got two shows in Ohio, one in Troy, Ohio, and one in Toledo on Sunday. Troy, Ohio is for MCW, right there in Troy. And then we also have CIW in Toledo, Ohio. Coming up after that, it's pretty much some OVW stuff. I know NWA just announced their tapings down in Tampa. I believe that's July 1st. And then also we got Exodus Pro, which will be August 9th. I know that's a little bit away. My match with EC3, July 11th. That is a big one with Pro Wrestling Epic. That would be on IWTV. Those are in my head. I've got some that I really wish I could say for like September, but I'll just say September PWE will be a really good one as well, which will also be on IWTV. So just off the top of my head, those are some upcoming ones that I have. If you interested in social media, anything like that, Brandon Barretta 98 on Instagram and Facebook. Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, is B_Barretta 98. And then for any booking inquiries, it's just Brandon Barretta 98 at gmail.com. I try to keep it pretty standard across the board. So
makes life easy for everyone.
yes, absolutely.
Certainly does. Fee, as we go wrap up, what have you got? I know we've done this on the NWA show recently. What have you got coming up?
I've got a quiet weekend this weekend. I will have one show this weekend. It's gala season for us over here. So like think summer fairs in a field. So I am emceeing for Premier British Wrestling on Saturday, weather dependent. If it rains, it'll be cancelled. So that's one. So just one show this weekend. Next weekend, I've got triple header Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. MCing in Musselburgh on Friday, in the Fife Ice Arena in Kirkcaldy on Saturday, and in Dunfermline, I believe, on the Sunday with W3L. So that's going to be a bit of a hectic weekend, but I'm looking forward to it. So
that'll be fun. I can just quickly announce July hang on, I always get this day wrong. I'm sure it's the 13th because I said this the other week, and the guy that does the ring was like, I hope it's the 13th. Yeah, it is the 13th. July 13th is the next time that our championship will be defended. Our new champion, thank fuck for that. Aluna is now our champion after dethroning the pain in my ass for the last year, Mark True. So she now gets her first defense, and someone from her Ignite Wrestling past, that being Nightshade, will be going against Aluna for the first, our championship fee. She will be defending our championship for the first time this coming July. So go to 96 Eventbrite, type in Breaking Point, and you can get your tickets for Ignite Breaking Point. And fee, I can announce that in around 4 weeks' time-ish, mark it down in your diary, we'll be celebrating 100 episodes of NWA Power, and to celebrate that very, very show, we'll have the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Thomas Latimer.
Oh, good old Tom Latimer.
Nice.
Yeah. Galaxy bars at the ready.
I know. Every time I come over to the USA, I have to bring British chocolate over for him.
Oh, wow.
I've been out for a few shows. I've been out for a few NWA shows, been out for Crockett Cup and stuff before, and half my suitcase is British chocolate for Tom.
Oh, wow.
He needs to try the mint one.
Shoot.
Hasn't done already. But Brandon, look, it's been absolutely fantastic having a chat with you this evening. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your afternoon/evening. Fee, I've got half my pajamas on. I'm going to bed. I'm sure you are too. But until next time, everybody, when we're back with Izzy James next week on Talking Territories. Until then, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and good night.